it for us to have justice in our financial system. But look at the corruption there today. Look at the crime. Look at the looting. Look at how money is missing left and right. So for me, I don't think they deserve any fairness. If there is another system that can replace EFCC, I would say let them scrap EFCC. Look at the way they arrest people. They will not carry proper investigation. They will go and arrest somebody. Later, they will release the person. All of these are the injustice we are facing. So for me, I don't think they deserve any fairness. Rather, they should look inward and do more. Make sure that they are carrying out the reason. They are fulfilling the purpose why they were established. That's my point. If you were able to convince people, maybe 2 people out of 10, is that justice? Is that fair enough? That's not fair. We're only looking at Ibori and one other 2 or 3 people that they convicted out of hundreds of corrupt politicians that they are looting. Allegations are glaring, even with evidence. What about this man that accepted, Yaya Bello, that yes, money was transferred to the school? At the end of the day, look at where he is today. Sorry, sir. So I will just conclude that my point is that I'm not seeing any fairness that should be going to EFCC today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Ihame, for your submission. You see, if somebody was to join the platform right now, listening to you, it would appear that mindset is here to defend EFCC, right? I keep saying this thing. Please quote me or challenge me on exactly what I said, not what you think you heard, right? Your point was that EFCC, since the time EFCC was created, they have not done anything. And I did say you're not being fair because there is a case in about James Ibori, but the way you framed it, it would appear that if somebody just joined the platform right now, they would think, okay, what did he say? What was going on here? So it's very, very important when you're responding to somebody, you can actually say, mindset, in the case of Ibori, I do not believe he is not the same. And that has to be on that particular case, right? So when you talk about fairness, I'm not here to defend EFCC. I hope that helps. We are challenging somebody or want to respond to somebody. Let's be very, very clear. It is that we are challenging. Because we're not there, okay, mindset is saying we are not fair because EFCC, he hated Malami and all these kind of things that you guys end up. I hope that helps you, right? Thank you very much. Let's pass the mic to Ayo. Ayo, you have the mic, please.
Thank you, Mindset. Yeah, I just want to ask, direct a few questions to Mr. John. I'm not sure I heard him correctly during his first submission. Was talking about the process of prosecution of Malami being flawed. I'm not quite sure whether he said that. If he did, can he kindly educate us how the process is flawed? Secondly, he talked about selective justice. I like to call it selective prosecution because there are others who are not being prosecuted. But then, what in this case, which one is of greater benefit? Selective prosecution or not prosecuting at all, regardless of whether they are in opposition or not? And thirdly, I personally agree with the last speaker that the percentage of successful prosecution is almost insignificant compared to the number of cases that EFCC have been handling since inception. And that for me amounts to waste of Nigerian resources because they are paying lawyers to prosecute these cases. What then can we do to make it faster, because the prosecution is also unnecessarily too long, and to make them independent? Those are my questions. If Mr. John can respond, I will appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. You did ask two questions. I can see Ope, I can see Dan and Michael raising their hands. Please do bear with me, those that raise their hands, please. Let's see if Mr. John will respond quickly to Mr. Ayodele's question. Then we'll come back to you guys. I hope that's okay with every other person. John, do you want to, Mr. John, do you want to respond to the question, sir?
Yeah, I mean, so I'll respond to the last one. I will just say that, the attempt to draw a meaningful moral distinction between selective justice and selective prosecution collapses the moment you understand what justice actually is. Prosecution is not a peripheral administrative step that sits outside justice. It is a central organ of justice. When prosecution is corrupted, justice is also already compromised. So justice is not this abstract verdict that descends at the end of the trial. It is a process that begins with investigation, moves through charging decisions, prosecution, adjudication, and enforcement, right? Each stage derives its legitimacy from the fairness of the stages before it. You cannot purify an unjust process by attaching a fair verdict at the end, right? Tainted inputs cannot produce untainted outcomes. So selective prosecution, therefore, is selective justice, because prosecution is the gate through which justice enters the courtroom. Whoever controls that gate controls the meaning of justice itself, right? If the law is enforced aggressively against some and ignored for others committing the same offenses, then that system is not administering justice. It is simply distributing power. And that's why in serious legal systems, prosecutorial discretion is treated as one of the most dangerous concentrations of authority in a democracy. The decision of who to charge, when to charge, for what, it determines whose lives are disrupted, whose reputations are destroyed, whose freedom is suspended long before any court pronounces guilt or innocence. So in summary, I would just say that this is why, legal philosophers, right, and constitutional democracies treat arbitrary or discriminatory prosecution as a violation of justice itself, not merely a procedural flaw. The injustice lies not only in wrongful convictions, but in wrongful targeting. The harm is not limited to the accused, it extends to society, which, as a whole, loses faith in the law as a neutral arbiter. So selective prosecution does not merely threaten justice, it is injustice in operational form.
Thank you very much, Mr. John. I can see quite a number of persons raising their hands. So let me just help say this. So the conversation is about Malami and EFCC. I know names of other politicians have been raised in this conversation. I do not want us to digress to now move away from the topic and, do things that a lot of people will be very excited to hear, and then it will bring a lot of crowd. I am not interested in having 50 million people listening to this platform. I just wanted to focus on the topic. So for those raising their hands, hopefully, I hope that you guys are going to stick to the topic. I just don't want us to move away from the topic. Malami vs EFCC. That is what the topic is. Mr. Dan, you have the mic, sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Can you hear me now?
It's much better. Yeah, go ahead.
John came here to talk about something that was not what I never said, first of all. That I said you can take somebody's property without the instrumental of the law. Maybe you did not hear me. What I said was simple. That
All right. Sorry, we've lost Mr. Dan. Hopefully he will rejoin. Obe, you have the mic, sir.
Oh, thank you. One of the things that why I like what El Nathan does is that he puts things into broader perspectives, and I think we always try to narrow things too much, but in the broader perspective, and one of the things that if you look at the Malami case initially, when the whole thing came out, it was all about 200 billion and all of that. And then I looked at the charges, and I think the sum total of the charges is about 8-point-something billion. So that means, first and foremost, that the EFCC, knowing Nigeria for what it is, sensationalized, the topics, put massive amounts. I'm not saying that that's not the amount, but what it did is that it put out figures that they had no proof of. They knew they stood no chance of proven in court. And then the actual charges, because they know that at the end of the day, the news of the 200 billion or more than that will fly faster than what the actual charges are, right? You know, it has already created. And then if you now take it further, you know, now let's assume, like, you know, let's assume that he's even guilty, right? What selective justice does is an easy route for him. He goes to where he's from and he says, it's only because I have decided to, you know, freely express my will not to be a part of this government. You understand? And that's why it looks like it's prosecution, and that's armory for him. And what that does again is it further depletes the trust that people don't even have in the EFCC. You know, it's a thing of, because, and then they put it at, it's because, you know, we're one of the loudest voices in the north, we're this, and you know, that's another angle. And then in terms of the EFCC, you know, I think that personally, I think that in all of the governments, successive governments that I think I don't know about Buhari, but I'll take the governments before Buhari. I think that at some point the EFCC at some point prosecuted those who served under those governments at some point, because I remember the case of in the times of Obasanjo, I remember the case of SM Afolabi, if I'm not wrong. SM Afolabi were to be the Minister of I think Interior. You know, in the case of Jonathan, I remember there was a case of Fabian Osuji. I remember there was a case of Stella Odua. I can't, off the top of my head now, remember anything under the administration of Buhari. But off the top of my head, you know, I know that nothing has happened in this administration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, you know, and there have been clear cases where members of his cabinet, you know, and even his kitchen cabinet have been fingered in, you know, corrupt practices. And, you know, no example was made of them. The only thing that we hear is we've asked him to resign. We thank him for his service. Those who claim to be sick, you know. And then what does that tell us, you know? What does that tell us? And if we now just take it again with Malami and Ganduje, you know, he could hide under the fact that, you know, Ganduje, at the time when the offenses were committed, Ganduje had immunity covering him. So the only time in which he could not be prosecuted was the moment he left office as governor, you know. And this is where the problems of systems, because if we're a country of, you know, laws and systems and, you know, guiding principles, I think Ganduje's case was before his second tenure. There was no reason why the government at that time could not, and that's one thing I give to former President Olusegun Obasanjo, you know, even if it was for optics, even if Ganduje wouldn't have gotten a second term, you know, with that clear video, you know. And it went that bad. He got the second term, he got re-elected, and then the new government that came in made him the party chairman. And that essentially just did what died down his case. So all in all, it's more like, you know, and when we say you take two people from each government, you prosecute, the next person takes two people from each government, all that it just does is, you know what, steal as much as you can steal. But once the next government is coming, just go and kiss the ring and then you're done. And then that tells us that as a society, where does that leave us? Are we progressing or are we retrogressing? And they say that if you look at corruption index, you know, and this is just generally in Nigeria, and you look at it from the advent of the inception of EFCC, you know, to these days, I think the perception, not even just perception, the widespread corruption, I don't think it has ever been this bad, because all that you just need to do in this time is what? One, kiss the ring, and two, sing a new anthem that has become a national anthem, you know, on your mandate, and then your sins are covered. So what does that do? And I think someone asked something about what do we do? I think the bigger problem, again, is that we need to have systems where we do as much as we can to prevent stealing than the aftermath. Because if, as much as they're pushing these tax laws, if they push these tax laws side by side with the reforms of contracting process, bids and all of that, then you can then say that we are progressing. But if you only have a corrective, I would say, I'm chasing after the money has been stolen, people can steal so cleverly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ope, for your submission. Now, you mentioned Obasanjo, when it came to Buhari, you said you cannot remember some of the persons who were going through EFCC trials, whether one would argue, whether people would argue that is a selective justice. But I mean, there's a person called Alice in Madeke, Tanzania. You remember her, right? And then we have the
Sorry, myself, to correct you. I was talking about people serving under that government being prosecuted in that same government. That's what I was talking about, not from previous.
Okay, all right. Oh, okay. I was going to say, did you forget about Alice in the Madeke design, and did you forget about Dasuki? But I think I get the point. The truth of the matter here is, like some of the speakers have alluded, it's very important that we do whatever we can, right? Even if it means not to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. Nobody would ever be perfect. But don't put yourself in a position whereby EFCC will come after you. All right? Now, there are those who believe in selective justice. There are those who believe it's not selective justice. When the APC came into power, the idea was to fight corruption. Unfortunately, it appears that, it's not that it appears, APC turned out to be one of the most corrupt. The Buhari's administration, in my own opinion, please do not hold every other person responsible. This is my mindset opinion, right? Because the last 8 years of Buhari was nothing to have right home about fighting corruption when you have the likes of Ganduje and the rest of them. And it would appear that it was selective justice, because this same man was going through the whole thing that we're talking about. Malami was one individual who did not respect the rule of law. We must say it the way it is. What he's going through, hopefully he will get justice, like Mr. Nelson said, Mr. John said, 3 ways of justice. I'm not a lawyer, but the truth of the matter is he actually gave the EFCC the power to do some of these things that they're doing against him. So this is something that each and every one of us will have to learn from it. Hopefully, Nigeria will be a better place. I'll pass the mic to Mr. Johnson. Johnson, you have the mic, sir.
Okay. Mindset. Good afternoon, Mindset. Good afternoon, good morning, and evening to your listeners, depending on where they are listening from. Yeah, but I think this is actually a very interesting conversation, because on one hand, many of us will want to say this is karma coming to Malami, but if we are to step back a little bit, just kind of take a look at it from like a more deeper perspective, what kind of country do we really want to live on? We want Nigeria to be, the problem I believe that is actually one of the most fundamental problem we have in Nigeria is even in a democracy, we talked about the importance of the rule of law. The rule of law is actually very important in every democratic society, because it kind of ensures the normal slogan that we often hear, where they said, "No one is above the law." That is one of the importance of the rule of law in a country where you have the rule of law. Certainly, you have the notion that no one is actually above the law, and the rule of law actually ensure that even the government in powers, they have kind of limited powers, because all the people in power, they will be subjected to the adherence of the rule of law. So in that context, I'm actually not going to say I'm someone that will be sympathizing with Malami, but in the overall context of the rule of law, which is kind of an aspiration that we're actually striving to reach in Nigeria, and which this APC government is actually failing totally. Even Malami himself is also a contributor to this fact. So in that very context, I would say that I'm actually on the principle stand. I don't agree with the notion of selective justice, whereby you think because he's corrupt, then he should be prosecuted, and you have maybe if another person comes in power, he should also pick up his political enemies to prosecute. This is not the kind of country that we are hoping to build or we are hoping to have in Nigeria, whereby we'll have these instances of selective justices and the rest. So on that principle stand, I think I don't support the selective justice of prosecuting going after one person, because it doesn't really help us to really get to where we are really hoping to get to in Nigeria, where we will actually have this principle of rule of law. And when we say nobody is above the law, we're going to make sure that every Nigerian is going to actually feel that, not just perceive it, they will feel that the law system is actually fair. If you commit a crime, you will actually be prosecuted. Those in government, if they do anything wrong, they will be prosecuted. But what we are having currently in Nigeria under APC is actually, in fact, it's an insult to the rule of law. It's an insult to democracy. We can go back as Obasanjo, Goodluck, Jonathan, Yar'Adua, and everything. I believe what we are experiencing today under APC is actually far, 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 far worse than what we have under Obasanjo and Goodluck, Jonathan, and other past administration. So it just seems like Nigeria, we kind of make one step forward and we make 200 steps backward. We expected that despite all the limitations we have during Obasanjo, we see some progress. We expected those progress will actually keep increasing. But unfortunately, what we've seen so far with this APC government is like they have taken us, instead of taking us forward, they've actually taken us like 200 steps backward. So I don't really I'm short of what to say. I just hope in a situation whereby we can get credible people, whereby we are not talking about being 200 steps backward. We should be making progress as a country. The progress we have in both in justice systems under the prior administration are kind of by far, we have retrogressed backward. We are not making any progress. So I will just end with that mindset. On a principle stand, I think what is currently happening to Malami is actually unfortunate. He is also part of the people that caused this, but we shouldn't just dwell on the individual. We should dwell on what we want to see as a country. We want to see a country that is actually making progress in every aspect of our democratic life. If truly we are democracy, we should be making progress. In our justice system, we should be making progress. In our economy, in our healthcare, we should be making progress. We shouldn't be retrogressing backward. And the fact that Malami kind of what he established, he kind of fall victims of that, but we shouldn't celebrate that, because our higher aspiration is Nigeria should be able to make progress to the extent where we can get that same principle of rule of law, where we can say, if we can say 100%, we can at least say 90% in Nigeria, no one is actually above the law. So I think that is actually the goal or the target that we should be aiming. In as much as we might want to dwell on individual, but I kind of don't want to dwell on just the individual of Malami. I'm actually looking at the overall context of the justice system, and I hope we can be able to get to a place in the country where we should be able to be making progress. Thank you, Myself. I yield back.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Johnson, for your wonderful submission. Okay, I was going to ask you to kindly mute your mic. Now, I mean, your point is valid because it's one thing for people to rejoice that Malami is going through this, but what happens if another government was to take over, then go after these other persons who are in this present APC? Then are we still going to cry foul, right? It will be fair. The right thing should have been, and I hope the government will continue will do something about it. There are quite a number of names that have been raised on this platform. I mean, outside this platform, we have the likes of Ganduje. We have the likes of the former governor of Delta State, Ifeanyi Okowa. We have the likes of Yaya Bello. EFCC should go ahead and charge these guys to court, right? Take them to court, let the court decide. I mean, then in the case of Yaya Bello, people will argue about he's been to court and this is what's going on in court. His case is he's on, he's been given bail. Okay, fine. Let's concede to that he's been given bail by the courts. What happened to Ifeanyi Okowa's case? Since he joined the APC, what happened? Right? There's quite a number of them. So let it not be selective. Go after each and every one of them. Anyone that committed a crime, and the EFCC should open up their files. Malami should have his day in court. Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Ola, you have the mic, sir.
Hi, Mindset. Yeah, it's just something that I've heard one or two of the speakers say about Nigeria was never this bad or corruption was never this bad. And I chuckle. If I would take people back on a slight history journey, when Gowon's administration was overthrown, 12 of the military administrators were found to have stolen money or acquired things that were not theirs. I don't think any of them was sent to prison. They just had to forfeit those properties. We move over to Shagari's time. Yes, when Buhari and IBB came in, they did their nonsense with 200, locking people up indiscriminately. But there was clear cases of corruption. And then we now move to Buhari's time. IBB's time. And then we move from IBB's time when, so much money came and little was shown for it. Then we got to the Abacha's time. The current minister for, is it budgetary planning, was shown to be one of the people that helped Abacha take money out of this country. He had money when Obasanjo was doing the repatriation of money. He agreed to forfeit some money, only for him to ask for that same money back. Bagudu. It's not. These are not secrets. And this is the same man that was appointed as the Minister for Budgetary Planning. So it just goes to show that Nigeria is not a serious country when it comes to fighting corruption. So that's why, like you said, Malami is going through what he's going through today. Tomorrow, it might be somebody else. And tomorrow, if Malami comes and says, I'm no longer part of the ADC, and I'm going to join APC, and I'm not good, the case would go the same way other cases have gone, dead and buried. That is why we need a functioning system, not this selective attack dog. Because it will look at every single head of EFCC. How have their tenures ended? Be it Magu, name them. Because they are only doing the biddings of who put them in office, not really doing what they've become like the FBI under Edgar Hoover during the McCarthy era. That's what they are. The sooner we know what they are, the sooner we'd have we manage our expectations over them. Thank you, Mindset.
Thank you very much, Ola, for your wonderful submission. Yes, you're talking about the former governor of Kebbi State, Atiku Bagudu, right? Who is not a hidden. This is not hearsay. People who would want to disagree with you can go and do their research on it. But at the end of the day, he's part of this government. So what stopped this government from going after him, right? EFCC should look into it, but nobody cares. I mean, they will not, because in the words of the former governor of Edo State, join APC and your sins are forgiven. So APC appears to be a place that sins are cleansed and everything becomes clean. You'll be as white as snow the moment you join. So anyone that has a problem, please, if you want your sins to be forgiven, you might want to look towards those that will clean your sins. I'm not encouraging you, but it appears that's the only way out, right? But I have a question. Mr. Dan, you raised your hand quickly, please, because I would like those on the speaker session to respond to this question. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, sorry, I'll be having challenge with the network. Ethan John said something I never said, right? And he said that when I was making my submission, that I said they can take your money or take your property or take whatever belongs to you without a court order. I never said so, right? I will use the word temporary. It's your job to go and tell the court that this property belongs to me and nobody should take it, right? And you can establish the means you make the whatever it is before the court can make final picture. And I use the word permanent there, right? So when you said they said anything like that, you will have listened very carefully so that you don't come out and say something somebody's never said in the public, right? You're listening carefully before you come and make corrections. You only make corrections to what you have listened carefully to. This is not what I said. First of all, the poker art, I was part of the people that made the poker art from the research time to the time it became a law in Nigeria. So don't think that some of us are just Twitter people, right? So it's not Twitter people we are. So when we said other things, we did not say it anyhow. I don't know if I want to say something, sir. If you allow me to do so in 1 minute.
I'm sorry, I would like to address, please permit me, sir. I would like to address something. Dan, thank you for always coming on the platform. You see, I do not think, please, I'm not here to take side. I think if anybody understands the way I run my platform, I think you're one of those persons. Now, if Mr. John did not hear what you said, maybe he misquoted you and everything, you have every right to correct him. But I do not think saying that he thinks we are Twitter people, I don't think that's right. You know why? No, you can't do this, John. And Dan, you know you're not supposed to. I don't want us to move from what the topic is and everything. You see, I've made a lot of mistakes in this, and sometimes somebody will correct me. Okay? The good thing about this place is I am not a lawyer. John is a lawyer, you're a lawyer, you guys know how to do these things. And we're here to learn from every other, the lawyers and those who are not lawyers, and we learn and we go back, we do our research. If for any reason you said something and he didn't hear it properly, and you said, "Oh, John, that's not what I said," but the word that everybody say Twitter, what does the word Twitter people mean? What does it mean? It mean that people on Twitter don't know anything. And I think we have to be very, very careful with the kind of words we use, Mr. Dan. But I don't continue on this. I just want us to move to the top because I just wanted to correct that, sir. You raise your hand quickly so I can ask my question.
Yeah. First of all, when somebody talks about justice being a three-way street, right? But let me should not be the one to tell us how justice should be applied, whether it's a three-way thing or two-way thing or one-way thing. Justice Onoge was removed against the Constitution, against the Constitution, 290 of the Constitution. It was permitted and deliberately done by Mr. Malami, using the Code of Conduct Bureau to achieve that such enterprise. Was I not aware that is not the law? There's so many things about Malami that anybody cannot come out and tell us the principle of law. Nigeria is not a country that operates on law. So the way Nigeria operates was the way Malami operated for 8 years as Minister for Justice. And we're here, we can outline it for you for free. Many of the things of Malami, the documents are available. There are plenty. You don't need to pay anybody. If you want it, I will send to your email. That's all you need to do. So when people come and make you look at things for Malami, we know the principle of law. The Nigerian laws don't work. Several times people have been granted by court. Several instances, Malami refused to do so. He refused to do so. Advising the president of Nigeria then, Muhammadu Buhari, that national interest supersedes rule of law. This is a person talking about rule of law in Nigeria. Whether you support ADC or whatever it is, so Nigeria is an enterprise that is a criminal enterprise for me. For I don't have anything to tell you that they did this before. The insertion of the EFCC today have been wrecked with political subterfuge in it. Nobody can come out and tell you that it has not been politically good environment. Malami operated in that environment when he brought his brother Abubakar Bawa to become the chairman of EFCC against the procedure of people who are higher than him in the office. People should not make it look as if Malami has And if he think he has a right, he should go to court to dispense that right. But Malami should not tell us with the principle of law today. You cannot do so. He did not do so for 8 years, even when he was supposed to be the one that advises the state as the number one legal officer of the country. But he failed in that regard in many instances. So if they say, oh, it is a not, oh, it is the no, nobody can tell the EFCC how to operate. When it comes to political environment, EFCC can operate anywhere because that's how Nigeria is. Maybe when we get to a better country, they will start talking about how EFCC should be. But for now, we should do it the way we find ourselves. We're not America, we're not Europe. We're Nigerian. There's a way they do Nigerian thing. Thank you so much, sir.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Dan, for your submission. I mean, I do not think that everybody on this platform is in with Malami. Quite a number of persons that spoke and continue to contribute have made it very clear. Some persons say that what's going on with Malami is not fair, right? So they believe it's witch hunting, and some individuals said, no, this is not right. If the APC, what he's going through, he deserves it. So nobody has actually said, it's not one person have said that. So, but thank you very much. Always a pleasure having you on the platform. So, Mr. John, I saw you raising your hand. I hope we're not going back to what Mr. Dan said, because I would like to ask a question. I don't want us to go back to that topic. I think I've addressed it. So, but if there's any other thing you would like to add, you have the mic, sir.
No, I was just going to say that, I mean, you see, the thing is, you know, when I mentioned earlier that Nigerians are part of the problem, you know, if a lawyer is dispensing with rule of law and that there's a way they do things in Nigeria, it means that you want Nigeria to be the jungle that it is. But if you have any respect for the law, you cherish the rule of law, then this is not an argument we should be making. Nobody, like you said, nobody is defending Malami here. We are defending the rules of law. And justice is not revenge. Justice is not vengeance. If you have read anything about jurisprudence or about the law itself, you know that this is not the purpose. Justice is not to revenge because we did a bad thing yesterday. That's not. That's if this is how a country should run, we shouldn't have any lawyers. We should just all be gangsters in the street so that we retaliate. That's not what justice is. And if you understand justice, then you wouldn't even make that argument. We want, and I'm glad that, you know, it's mindset space. The reason why we gather here is to see how the country can become better, not how we can perpetuate this jungle justice. And that's why justice is not vengeance. That's not what justice means. You know, and we must keep reminding Nigerians that we cannot keep being part of the problem by saying, well, this is how Nigeria is. We should just carry on with the madness of our politicians. You have to do better. Otherwise, we are not better than we are. Otherwise, there's no reason why you are a lawyer. There's no reason why law exists. If law exists, it exists for a purpose. If justice exists, it exists for a purpose. We cannot, especially if we claim to be lawyers, we cannot be speaking outside these parameters. Thanks, Mindset.
I mean, I'm happy that when we started the spaces this afternoon, I did ask Ariwa a question, because Ariwa is one person who put it, and he believed that Malami was supposed to be given bail, but for some reason, investment to the EFCC, they refused to grant him bail. But so after not only Ariwa, there's been a number of handles and other people, other persons who put out statements. I mean, from Malami's camp, I apologize, Malawi. Malami's camp, it appeared that from them, the EFCC refused to grant him bail. But then the lead counsel for the EFCC, Dr. Khan, ASN, now put out a tweet to say that Malami actually went and got an expert order from a different court. Whereby, this is very interesting. I hope Mr. John and Mr. Dan, who are lawyers, you guys can help me out here. So he decided, because the High Court in FCC refused to grant him bail. So Malami went and get an expert order from a different court that granted him bail. Now, this is the problem, right? Is he supposed to do that? mean, anyone, Mr. John, if you want to respond to that, because this is the thing. Two wrongs don't make it right. Now he's in court. He's supposed to go to court, and then if the court grants him bail, but if the court have denied you bail, are you supposed to start shopping around for justice somewhere else? Because this was the argument from persons like, I believe Ariwa is still here. Ariwa. He's kind of, hello. So the argument that Ariwa and the from Malami camp were making that EFCC have been he's been granted bail and he was not given, but the lead counsel and just say that this is not right. This is not what happened. So in court, or those of you who understand law better than myself, Mr. John and Mr. Dan, please, can you guys quickly, because of time, is he supposed to do that? Is he a law against what he did? Mr. Dan, you raise your hand. Please go ahead.
Again, it's an abuse of court process for a court of coordinate jurisdiction to want to upturn the decision of another court of that particular jurisdiction, of that particular coordinated jurisdiction. Does it make any sense? Even a 100-level student will not do so. And this is what we talk about Nigeria being a system that it is. If the court refuses to grant you bail, bail is not a right per se, that it is a discretion of the court. The court can choose to give you right that determined to decide that right, that discretion that they have to do so. If they choose not to do so, you can appeal it. You can appeal it that you are appealing it, and not to another high court, but a superior court. In this sense, the court of appeal. Yes, this is an institution of Nigerian government. So the court is an institution of Nigerian government too. So the court can make a decision on that. But whereby a court, a federal high court, for instance, make a decision, then you go to FCC high court to go and obtain another judgment from that, another order from that court to grant you bail. Was it that court? Were you before that court? Was it before the court? It was not before that court. It was another court. They want another place to go and get this thing, like we do every time we do forum shopping. So it's not legal in law. So that's why EFCC did not honor it when he served the FCC. So EFCC did not honor that particular order from the court. EFCC said the court order is before you are before another court. You cannot go to another place to go and get another order. So he went to the television and said, "Oh, they are the FCC. FCC refused to do anything about it. Because of that, FCC is withholding him. They wanted to grant him bail, and all those things." But of course, it's a media trial. It will create another impression that I can get sympathy for people who want to do political party. But for us, we understand Nigeria, and we have been there very well entrenched in there. So we can do it the way Nigeria is. And when I say Nigeria is, we're not myopic about certain things, right? We're not myopic about certain things. I'll leave it like that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dan. Sorry, I have to raise my hand because of time. Mr. John,
Big Sam, am I the only one who can't hear mindset?
No.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Oh, sorry. I apologize. I was actually speaking. I didn't know. This is very rude. I really apologize, guys. So, the same question to you, Mr. John. I hope and I believe you saw the argument when persons like Ariwa and those who are on Malami's camp were shouting on top of their lungs that he has been granted bail and EFCC has refused to acknowledge the bail that has been, that acknowledge that he has been granted bail. But from the lead counsel of the EFCC, SAN Oketeba, he made it very clear that he got the judgment from a different court. Right? I wanted to know from you as a lawyer, I mean, Mr. Dan has tried to shed light to this, but I wanted to ask you the same question as well. Do you think what Malami did was the right thing, as a lawyer?
So just the facts, right? So Malami was arrested on the 8th of December by the EFCC. He initially applied for bail. The trial judge remanded him in custody and adjourned until the 2nd of January. And then another federal high court judge granted Malami bail via an ex parte application on the 23rd of December. To the question, I think that one of the most dangerous habits that have crept into Nigerian legal practice is the casual abuse of ex parte orders. And I think the Malami case illustrates this perfectly. So what an ex parte application is It's an extraordinary legal device. It exists for the purpose of urgency, for prevention of irreparable harm, and for situations where delay would defeat justice itself. It's not a procedural shortcut for shopping around after an unfavorable ruling, right? The moment it becomes that, the integrity of the judicial process itself is compromised. So when a court considers an application for bail and declines to grant it, the proper response in a functioning legal system is clear. It is appeal, review, or await the next procedural opportunity under the rules. So essentially, appeal that ruling to a higher court, not go to a court of equal jurisdiction and seek an ex parte order to overrule the previous order. So I think that it's actually dangerous, and the danger lies in the asymmetry, right, of ex parte orders. So ex parte orders are granted in the absence often of the opposing party, relying entirely sort of on the good faith of the applicant and the vigilance of the judge. So once that asymmetry is exploited to undermine a prior judicial decision that has been given by a court of competent jurisdiction, then the court ceases to be an arbiter and simply becomes a tool. So it is not legal, and it was right for the authority to reject that particular. An ex parte order is not something you abuse. It's actually, like I said, an extraordinary legal device that was created to cure what is irreparable, harm that is irreparable, and situations where delay would defeat justice itself. It's not a procedural shortcut.
Okay, thank you very much. You see, this is why it's very important to have lawyers joining us here, so they're able to explain some of these things to us who are not legally sound. We are not lawyers. So thank you very much, Dan and Mr. John, as always. Okay, we do have some new speakers here. I can see you raising your hands. I can't pronounce this name. Aderoho. I believe I pronounced your name properly. Please, if for any reason I mispronounce your name,
thank you very much. You did pronounce it well. So what I wanted to touch on, someone has already spoke about it, but I'll just throw more light into it and be very brief. So Nigeria is a very interesting, we have very interesting society, and I've always been of the opinion that, for our society to work, our legal system has to work. Meaning that our legal system, our court, has to be truly independent. Now, regardless of any political party, regardless of whoever is in power, either APC, PDP, or even ADC, trust me, we will still have this problem. Because, think about it, right? We have the likes of Okoa, who are shielded by the APC right now. And you have Malami right now, who is being shielded by some people who are in the ADC, probably the supporters, right? So this is the problem, because if we continue in this part, in this eye, we will continue to face similar challenges in the future, where when a politician will steal money, the party will come up, probably because they will have to spend that money in that party, sponsor candidates, they will get shielded at some point. So the only solution, because I love solutions rather than just complain of the problem, is to find a way to actually make the court system independent, not making a president control the judge or making a governor try to, influence things. And I believe that's the only way to solve it. Nigeria case is not unique, because trust me, look at the United States, for example. If they are talking about violence, criminals, trust me, they are more capable of stealing than we do in many cases. Now, the reason why they don't do these things, or the reason why they have kind of a better society, is because they know if they steal, if they do some certain things, the law will take its course. That's why you see people follow the traffic laws. People don't rob. People don't do some certain things. But in our case, people just don't care because they know if they do these things, the law will not take its course. And in most of the it's true independence of our court of law. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adero, for your wonderful submission. I align with your thoughts and with your view. And there are quite a number of persons, lawyers, who have continued to speak on this particular issue about judicial reform. Personally, for me, I do not think that, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's very important that people should not, choose. I don't want anyone to misquote me because they are fond of doing this. Now, it's good to talk about electoral reforms, but I think the most important thing is judicial reform. And I remember after the election, I tweeted about it. I hosted spaces about it. And I was trying for, those people who want to rule Nigeria to look into this thing and say, guys, the most important thing here is judicial reform. If you do reform, we have a problem. And I must thank every lawyer, Mr. John, Mr. Dan, and every other to amplify the injustice in the Nigerian judicial system, especially Professor Taylor Dicano, who has carried this on his head by himself. It will appear he's just a lone wolf, right? There has to be judicial reform. There has to. So I do agree with you. Thank you very much for your wonderful submission. So I can see they're raising his hand. Are you raising his hand? Mr. Dan, I'll come back to you. Please bear with me. Okay, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I was going to speak on this particular, and again, piece of comes on the road. I remember Malami used the particular whatever reason. And at the end of the day, I think the case didn't go far. I think they said the government and the CJN settled out of court, And today again, he's forum shopping for an ex parte order. But again, I also want to ask these questions to the lawyers in the house. If I'm invited for an investigation, right, and you ask me questions, okay, you give me another day to come up, then you grant me administrative bail, and then you give me another day to come up, and I don't, I've honored that invitation. At the point of investigation, is it a norm to detain someone you're still investigating? And then with the next one is, now eventually when you take me to court, and when you're investigating, should you go and get a remand order and have me remanded? Because I also think that, I think Malami also understands the system, right? Okay, mindset, you're raising your hands. Should I?
I was gonna say it helps if it's one question. I mean, if it's two questions, let them answer one.
No,
then it will come back.
Okay.
Is it one question, sir?
No, it's all summed up together, but I can.
Oh, okay.
It's all in the same line of the bail thing and ex parte order. It's all summed up together. So the next thing was, I was going to ask, is it right, for someone who has committed a financial crime, that you then go again and get an order of remand, and this happens a lot. You can get an order of remanding him maybe 21 days. And then I ask the question, have you not done your work before inviting that person? And then finally, why should the court, is the case a case where if the man is outside, is it a case where it has been established that the man is going to abscond? But what reason do they have, really valid reason? If you've accused the man of stealing, you've not proven it. It's not a murder case where, the person is a danger to the society. Why do you refuse him bail? Is it all an intimidation tactic? So I was just going to ask.
All right. So I'm happy that we have lawyers who would like to respond to it. Mr. John, okay, go ahead.
So to begin with, right, so EFCC, the question revolves around EFCC's power to arrest and detain during an investigation, the power to remand and the power to grant administrative bail, right? So First, the general rule is under the Constitution. Any person who was arrested or detained, right, in accordance with Section 35(1)(c) must be brought within a court of law within a reasonable time. Subsection 5 of Section 35 defines what reasonable time means. It says 24 hours where there's a court of competent jurisdiction within a radius of 40 kilometers, or 48 hours when that is not the case. And that establishes that EFCC can arrest on reasonable suspicion, and that the detention must lead to court, and that the time limits are not discretionary but mandatory. The second thing is around the requirement for remand orders during investigation, right? So under the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, the ACJA, Section 293 says that, when a suspect is arrested for an offense, for which a magistrate court has no jurisdiction to trial, the suspect shall be brought before the court for the purpose of remand, right? And the application of remand shall be made ex parte and shall be supported by an affidavit, right? So a magistrate may remand a suspect for a period not exceeding 14 days, right? Now, the combined effect of the Constitution and the ACJA is that there is no section anywhere authorizing detention solely because investigation is going on, right? Beyond the limits stated in the law, right? Courts have repeatedly affirmed this principle, but the statutory prohibition already exists. Now, the EFCC Establishment Act, right, states that the Commission shall have the power to cause investigations to be conducted as to whether any person has committed an offense under this act, right? Section 38 says that the Commission may make rules or regulations for the discharge of its functions. Now, the effect of this is that EFCC is allowed to grant administrative bail, and that this power exists only before court intervention, right? Once it goes to court, this power disappears once the suspect is remanded or arraigned. So to be clear, administrative bail is not a constitutional right, right? But detention without court oversight is unconstitutional, right? So this, I think, I hope explains that in summary, the EFCC cannot detain you without time limits. The investigation by the EFCC does not suspend the liberty that's granted to you under the Constitution. That remand by the EFCC is finite, which means there's a fixed time during which they can remand you, and it has to be done under exceptional circumstances. The default normally is that bail will be granted, but procedures must be followed. I hope that sort of answers the question.
All right, thank you very much. Dan, you raised your hand. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, my leader. But let me state it very clearly, right, on the position of an ex parte order, right?
All right, we've lost Dan. Dan, for some reason today you have been struggling with your network, and hopefully you will rejoin us as soon as you sort it out. But before I pass the mic to Ayo, please, I can see you raising your hand. Bear with me for a minute. Now, you see, the thing here is, like Mr. John said, the procedure is very, very important, right? Now, let's say Malami, I think some of us do not even know that Malami is a lawyer, right? He's a SNA in Nigeria, so is that senior advocate, right? Now, he has some good lawyers who are representing him, not only himself now, the wife and the son. And one of them is SN Joseph Dawood. Mr. John, I believe, Dan is not here. I believe you know who SN Dawood.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Dan, please hold your thought for a minute. I'll come back to you, please. Thank you. Mr. John, you know who Mr. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying again?
You were going to talk about JB Dawood.
Okay. Yes, you know him very well, right? And you know how he's a fighter. Not that he hasn't lost the case, but he's a very good lawyer. So for someone like him handling this case, do you for any reason believe or think that the government, come 22nd of January, that EFCC will be, that Malami will be granted bail? Do you see that happening?
I mean, so I think that we must understand two things. First, that this is not purely about legal arguments, but it's also political. So everybody is sort of trying to cut corners to sort of get time within the backdoor negotiations and all of that. Malami, also being a person who is also trying to game the system. But I also want to clarify that. So you see, there are conflicts from both councils, right? So first, like the reporting, at least the one I've read, right, is that some claim that Malami did not simply just go to a separate court, right? That the situation involves like multiple judicial actions, and the dispute is over proper service and enforcement of a bail order. So EFCC says we did not receive this bail order pursuant to an ex parte order, right? And that we only recognize the order that was granted by the court where we instituted the action, right? And so they are saying, well, there was another action and, there was an ex parte order and, EFCC said, well, we're not properly served with that order, right? For now, honestly, this is more, the reason, you see, Nigerian law is very tricky to understand because a lot of it is people abusing the legal process. And so, yeah, two lawyers can come and say, this is the right process, this is the right process. But in the end, everyone is trying to game the system. And that's why it comes back to this issue of clear rules, respect for the rules, and us insisting that both lawyers, judges, and a constituted authority need to follow due process, and not that everyone is trying to sort of game the system and trying to use ex parte orders to circumvent valid court orders, and that's why we talk about the abuse of this ex parte motions, where one court says you should be remanded, then you go to another court and say, grant me bail, and that other court grants you bail, when both courts are actually have concurrent jurisdiction, not that you appealed to a higher court, right? And that is the process of appeal, that a court at this level says go to jail or be remanded. You can only appeal to a higher court to say, I appeal the decision of this court, not go to an equal court to get an order to circumvent the order of that court that has equal jurisdiction with this one. This amounts to abuse of judicial process. So it's not that the EFCC themselves are clean in this matter. EFCC is also known for abusing legal processes, which we saw a lot under Malami as EFCC chair himself. It comes back to this idea that Nigerians do not respect the rule of law, do not respect the processes. They use courts as a way to abuse the legal process, and we must insist that things be done properly, and not that we need to actually, especially those of us who are lawyers, we must say that courts must be seen to be following the law, and not that you can just get a judge that you like to give you an order that will scuttle the order of another brother judge of his.
For your wonderful submission. Then I can see Mr. Ayo is raising his hand. Ayo, you have the mic. Ayo. I hope I'm still audible, right? Hello?
We can hear you, Mindset.
All right. So since Ayo responded, I think we can pass the mic to Edero. You have the mic, sir.
All right, thank you very much. For the last speaker, so this is a question, right? Is there no law that is clearly stated, a written law that will stop someone from going to multiple courts just to beat the system?
Mindset, you want?
So, Mr. John, that question, please, sir, go ahead. You're the only lawyer we have in the house.
So The rules, in fact, several Supreme Court cases, Court of Appeal cases, have sort of warned sternly against abuse of court processes, warned sternly against the use of ex parte motions. Right now, that there are cases that actually say this is an abuse of court process doesn't stop you from physically going to a court and applying for something, right? You can apply, and it's the job of the judge to actually say no, right? Remember what an ex parte motion is. When you apply ex parte, it means without the presence of the other party. It means you go to court alone and say, so and so is happening, and like I said, it's an extraordinary legal process, which is to say something terrible is about to happen, right? Or let's give an example. Somebody is about to demolish my house. I cannot wait for the full process. I need an order now to stop them from, because if they demolish this house, I cannot come back to court because the house is already demolished, right? Or they're about to execute a sentence, and I'm like, look, if you don't stop this thing from happening now, there will be manifest injustice, even if I go to court later. And that's the purpose of an ex parte motion. And that's why you can go without inviting the other party. Normally, you should properly serve the other party so that they will come and be heard, right? I do not see any such urgency in this case, right? Even though, like I said, the other party is not also an innocent party. Both people like Malami and the EFCC themselves have a history of abusing court processes. So while there is no clear law that says you cannot go to another court, there are cases that say you should not do this. The problem is that judges need to be more serious in actually enforcing these rules. The big problem is that our judiciary is also corrupt. And so it is very easy to find a judge that will give you all sorts of useless orders, right? So it comes back again to the integrity of our judicial system. The reason why you can go to a court and get to a parallel court and get an order despite there being a subsisting order that is issued by a valid the court of competent jurisdiction is because the judiciary itself is corrupt, and it's possible to do this. So I think the whole it boils down to how lawyers and judges are themselves part of the abuse of this legal system. So there are cases that say you should not do this, but this is the problem.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. John, for your wonderful response, and thanks to every other person that has asked questions. Mr. Ayo, you're still raising your hand.
Yes.
Is it me or me? Okay, go ahead, sir.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mindset. Yeah. I'm happy that we are moving to the realm of solutions, which for me is the most important thing. But I've had to reflect on many of the submissions. And thank you, Mr. John, for correcting me that it's actually selective justice. Why I use selective prosecution was because it's when it is successful that we tend to have justice. But be that as it may, your explanation of selective justice is very sound, logical, and rooted in legal theory. But considering Nigerian situation, it kind of created a deadlock because it's not practical, in my view. This is why I'm saying that. I'm not sure selective justice can be brought before a judge in a law court. My lord, there are some other people that are being shielded, not prosecuted by EFCC. So the person that has been alleged to have committed a financial crime, because my interest is financial crime done in the right procedure, legal procedure. So therefore, we cannot continue this case until others are brought before your court, because that's not the duty of the court. And over years, that has been our reality. Until such a time, we have a very credible leader with very strong political will to ensure that institutions like EFCC is independent and shielded by the constitution of the country. We cannot say too much about selective justice. It has more to do with societal value. That is the value, whether we like it or not. I like us to be very practical and realistic. We've all, at one point or the other, lived in that country. So for me, what if there are no solutions? We cannot, for any reason, in my view, now say selective justice is what is being done, and we should not be happy that someone is being prosecuted. It's an allegation, after all. If he's good and if he hasn't done that, let him go and defend himself. So for me, I really don't think selective justice is something we should not dwell on when someone is being prosecuted, or use that as an opportunity to rubbish the whole process. As long as due processes are followed in the right legal way, then so be it. It is still a plus for the country. If anybody is being prosecuted, so that's my view.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aya. So Aya's point is very, very important because in his own view, it doesn't matter who does it first. It doesn't matter for the people, for the process to be fair, right? We want everyone to do the process. Mr. John, please do your review for the 35 party right here. I would like to ask Harry West this, if that's okay. Or if you would like to say a quickly answer question, I think you can make that call.
No, go ahead, and then I think I just spoke. Now, so do yours, and then I'll go on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So, Harry, I believe you're still in the process, right?
Yes, I'm on the platform.
All right, you're kind of quiet. You don't want to contribute any of that. I have a question. So, you're listening to those again. You believe that Mr. Malami will get justice?
Thank you, Monset. And I was actually listening to the conversation carefully because I wanted to hear on both sides of the argument. You see, the aim and objective of this trial in the first place was never to get justice, which is very unfortunate. And I'll tell you why. You know, we've gone back and forth about how the EFCC keep doing selective justice and how this trial, and I still maintain my position. You see, it is not news that Malami is a key player in the ADC. He's not just a member of EDC. This is what I want so many people to understand. He's a very, very critical figure. In fact, I'm going to tell you that Malami in the ADC he is the leader of the Buhari's camp, ADC, that is currently operating in the ADC. The entire Buhari camp, it's not Nasru El-Rufai like many would think, or Amici. The leader of the Buharist faction, or let me say the Buhari side of the ADC is Malami. Is a key figure, and it's not a coincidence that this trial has gone too far. Because if it were just a mere case, I'm not a lawyer, but I've worked with judiciary a couple of times, and I've heard the argument there, and I've seen cases that are more critical than that of Malami, and they never brought this kind of show of shame. I call it show of shame because they are hell-bent on inciting, intimidating, and embarrassing the entire Malami family. So there was never an arrangement for justice in this case. It's a political witch hunt, and I will keep insisting that I'm not exonerating Malami of crimes committed when he was the AGF.
What I am saying, and is simple, the EFCC as a body, this current EFCC, has no legal, has no moral rights to say it is fighting corruption. When this is how it chooses to go about it, others are working freely. Those in the APC, it's not a coincidence that everybody in the APC that has corruption cases, they just turn a blind eye to it. So the idea of this case mindset, it's never for justice. This is planned. It was well planned. It was coordinated. It was well arranged. And Malami being a very, very influential figure in the ADC, this is what is happening now, and this is why we are insisting that this is a direct attack on opposition, because ADC is currently the opposition in Nigeria. I don't see PDP as an opposition because they don't even know what they are doing at the moment. They don't know if they are a party or a movement. I don't even know what to call them now. So the only threat that is right in front of APC at the moment is ADC. So it's not a coincidence, myself. And justice was never the target. This is pure political wisdom, and irrespective of what anybody will think, this will be my stance.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. John, you have the next one. Okay, so to answer thank you for your very kind response. My response to you is, I think that the argument that because we're a broad country, we should accept selective justice, because to summarize, and I hope I'm getting your position right, that some justice is better than none. I'm not sure it's quite pragmatic. Here's why. I think it's corrosive because I think it misunderstands what justice is and why corruption exists in the first place. Selective justice is not like a lesser form of justice. It's a different thing entirely. It is power choosing its targets. So once justice becomes selective, it ceases to be corrective and it becomes disciplinary. It stops restraining corruption and it starts organizing corruption, right? So in systems where justice is applied evenly, corruption becomes risky for everyone. In systems where justice is selective, corruption becomes strategic. So it does not stop people from stealing, it only stops them from stealing more carefully. They steal with political insurance. They steal while cultivating protection. And so what selective justice does is that it teaches the elite the wrong lesson. It does not teach them not to steal. It teaches them not to fall out of favor with the person in power. And that's why selective justice does not reduce corruption. It only professionalizes it, right? So the claim that we should take whatever justice we can get, I think it ignores how injustice compounds, right? So a society that tolerates selective prosecution quickly learns that, innocence does not offer protection and that guilt is negotiable. So that today, if Malami goes and negotiates with the people in power, if he ceases to become a political opponent, his prosecution will also die a natural death, right? So people now adapt rationally to this reality. So they will hoard influence, they will hoard money, and they will hoard networks because the law itself cannot be trusted. So low trust now becomes the organizing principle of public life, which is the case in Nigeria. So once that happens, justice itself loses its moral authority. We cannot have a country where justice loses its moral authority and where citizens stop seeing law as a shared standard to begin with and begin to see it as a weapon that can be wielded by others. So that's really my response. That a corrupt country does not need sort of less insistence on justice. It needs actually more, especially when it's inconvenient, especially when it frustrates our desire for like quick wins. It is not a step toward reform. It is a quiet agreement that reform has already failed and been abandoned. And if we accept that bargain, we will not get justice more often. It will simply become more difficult to get real justice. And that's sort of my response to this idea that, we should accept this as it is now.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. John. Ayo, you're raising your hand. But before that, let me pass the mic to Adero. Ade, you have the mic. I'm going to call you Ade, so I hope that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much. So I wanted to just speak a little bit on what Ayo said, and also ask Ariwa some follow-up questions. Now, Ayo actually spoke really well, and I actually like his stand. In the current state of Nigeria and where we are today, people need to actually see that there is justice at all. If we follow the idea that, okay, yeah, selective justice is actually bad, it's not good for our society, as the lawyer already explained. However, we've seen that this person is actually committed a crime and is actually going through the process right now. And if they find him guilty, I believe he should go in for it. Now, for Ariwa, that's what I wanted to ask him. Like, if this person we are discussing right now is actually guilty, they find him guilty and they charge him, will you accept that, irrespective of your support, irrespective of you being in the ADC camp, and is probably you like him as a person, if they charge him to court and they find him guilty, will you accept the court's verdict?
Anyway, that question is for you, sir.
Let me respond to that question. You see, the challenge that I am having with what EFCC is doing and where I am at the moment with EFCC is this is a case of somebody that decision has been made. So from my own angle, there is absolutely no form of justice of any kind that can come out from this trial. You see, the foundation at which you start something speaks volume. We have this saying in Hausa, that's what you planted is what you reap. You cannot plant corn and harvest and harvest beans. So the initial start of this issue is that the EFCC's entire idea of arresting Malami is a political witch hunt to demoralize the opposition. So no outcome that will come out from this administration court and this Tinubu administration that will see it as a justice. Like I said when we started this conversation, mindset, I said I am not there yet of whether Malami is guilty or not guilty or he has this corruption case. It's just that this EFCC, this particular EFCC at this case of Malami is a predetermined case already. He is not having a clear hearing. He is not being trial on the basis of him have a case or common proof is, say, the judgment has been written. Let me just put it this way, even before the trials begin. So there is nothing that is attached to justice that is going to come out of this case from the EFCC's perspective or from Nigerian court, from any of the Nigerian courts that EFCC are going about. So it's something that's faulty from the onset. It's not something that is open to fair judgment that he might be found guilty or not. When we had this conversation some weeks ago, Mindset stated this, and I was not among the people who knew that's not possible. And here we are, it's happening in front of us. So you see, there is no justice in this Malami case, and it's as simple as that. I yield.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ariwa, for your submission. Aya, I can see you raise your hand, and Mr. Johnson. Aya, you have the mic.
Thank you, Mindset. Yeah, I'd like to respond to Ariwa Pot after following up with Mr. John's explanation. As always, your explanation is very clear, very sound, but that created a deadlock. Like you giving a well-researched explanation. And what such an explanation will do is to water down in our minds the prosecution of Malami at the moment, which I don't want to believe. I understand that it can look difficult scenario. Well, here is the point. By the mere fact that a case has been filed against whoever, even including the man and Yaya Bello, usually the practice is that the case will drag for years. But they are vulnerable. Even if Malami decides to return back to APC, they are vulnerable, in my view, because the case has been opened. The case can be revisited by a credible government with the right political will. That's my stance. With the right political will, we will not pander to any side. Whether you are in my party, whether you are in opposition party, law is law. We institutionalize a process to make EFCC indeed independent, shielded by the Constitution. Until such a time, I don't believe we should water down this case. Because you have given this explanation, honestly, I perfectly understand your point. But my point is, they are already, Malami is already if tomorrow in brought back to APC. Because the case has been opened. Another government can revisit the case anytime in future. Then Arewa talking about justice not being done, it's already determined, it's a flawed process. That was why I asked Mr. John earlier on. I'm not sure any process here has been followed through the wrong way. If there is, anybody can enlighten us. And to say that a judgment has already been written, which means if I'm arraigned before the court tomorrow by the EFCC, I can easily use the same tactic and say, oh, this is not right. The judgment has been written before the case has started. So that is my own view. For the mere fact that you are being prosecuted, whether altered or the case tactically delayed, you already vulnerable. No one knows tomorrow. Another government can come and revisit the case. It is possible, except if it is not possible. So that's my view. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Ayo, for your submission and your response to Ariba. You see, one of the things, I mean, if I'm going by what you've said right now, the case can on the case of the senator, from the state senator, the former governor of Abia State, Senator Ojo Zakalo, that case started in 2007, right? And it was 2019 that he was convicted. But even at that, after that, and still, he found a way around it, and he was a free man, and the argument in the case was that it was a different judge. Mr. John is here, so he's a lawyer. He can shed more light to it. And I think the argument there was the reason. I mean, one of the reason actually, not one of the reasons that he was a free man. He's a free man today is because it was a different judge that tried him. A judge that tried him is a judge. Georgia. So this is the thing. You wait till 2007 and you come to 2019. That's how many years, right? So why can't you is very straight? I mean, if someone to court, it takes a year. Practicing on for long, and then we wait for another government to continue where the other government stopped. This started with the PDP, and he ended up with the APC government, and he was able to find a way out of it with the APC government, right? Mr. John, you raised your hand before I go back to Mr. Johnson.
So just to be clear, right? I'm not proposing some sort of deadlock position. I don't think there's any deadlock here at all. The choice is not between prosecuting corrupt politicians and doing nothing. That's a false dilemma. I'm not arguing that Malami should not be prosecuted. He should be. What I'm insisting on is how he is prosecuted and what that prosecution represents in a constitutional democracy, right? And remember, I said before, justice that is properly so-called, as we say in law, must not only be done, but it must be seen to be done, right? Now, that maxim exists precisely to prevent the state from confusing power with justice. The legitimacy of punishment, right, does not come with public satisfaction or moral certainty. It comes from fair, consistent, and transparent processes, right? So, what the way forward is actually is not restraint from prosecution. It is universality of prosecution. Justice works only when the same investigative standards apply to everyone, the same offenses attract the same urgency, the same procedural safeguards are respected, and that political alignment does not accelerate or shield prosecution. Now, this means that Malami and prosecuting others similarly situated, regardless of party or loyalty, or usefulness to those in power, right? Anything else is not realism, it's actually capitulation. The demand for equal justice, in my mind, right, is not sort of an abstract moral luxury that we can't afford. This is the only thing that separates law from injustice. Now, the argument that we should prosecute him anyway, right? He's corrupt, right? It ignores this central democratic truth. And I mentioned this earlier. Process is the content of justice. If prosecution is selective, inconsistent, or politically timed, that's important. And I'm going to, forgive me, I'm just going to mention a few actual cases in Nigeria that will say what I'm saying, right? If it's politically timed, it ceases to communicate accountability and instead it communicates dominance, and that's not justice, right? Now, some key authorities that I can remember: 2007, Supreme Court case, the Attorney General of the Federation versus Abubakar, 2007. In this case, the Supreme Court actually condemned the misuse of state power and legal mechanisms, not illegal things. Power and legal mechanisms to achieve political ends, especially where due process and fair hearing are compromised. The court made it very clear that legality cannot be manufactured to serve political objectives. In 1986, military governor of Lagos State versus Ojukwu, and this is a foundational case, the Supreme Court held that the government itself must be subject to the rule of law and cannot act with impunity simply because it believes its cause is righteous. And justice follow law and not. The final case I will talk about is the 2007 Amechi versus Island. Here, the court said, if we affirm the integrity of democratic, outcomes being dependent on process, not expedience, and that when process is corrupted, outcomes, however legal they may be, lose legitimacy. So what I'm saying is not like wishful thinking or idealism. It's actually rooted in Nigerian law, case law, in the spirit of our law. And finally, I'm sorry, I know I'm thinking long. Finally, the legal jurisprudence is full of cases, right, about targeted prosecutions of opposition figures leading up to elections. The core legal argument being that there must be equality before the law, and that in fact, the courts across democratic systems, not just in Nigeria, recognize that politically motivated prosecutions violate due process, whether or not because prosecution itself is not merely, the common defense that the court will ultimately decide guilt. It actually misunderstands the nature of prosecution itself. By virtue of doing targeted prosecutions in a field full of corrupt people is already punitive by itself, right? And so, uh, you know, we want a better Nigeria, all of us, right? But we cannot achieve a better Nigeria through shortcuts. It will never give us a better Nigeria. I'm not, the problems of Nigeria will not through quick and shoddy prosecution of opposition. I do not think Malami is clean. This is my opinion. He should have his day in court. But that's not the only thing. Only that the justice that we desire for a country where justice is predictable, where I know that it's not just because I'm the wrong political party that I will go to court. Also, that I know that just going to the ruling political party will not shield me or delay my prosecution. That is something that I cannot dispense with for expedience. And that's the danger for me in saying, Nigeria is the way it is. Let's just see some justice. That seeing some justice is actually more detrimental to Nigeria in the long run than it helps us, at all. Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. John, for your information. You guys will be rounding up in the next 2 minutes. So you advise speaking for the very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mindset. If Mindset, I would have just said, don't need to speak again because I can say like that. What John said, he was very elaborative. In fact, he spoke my mind in a more intelligent way. I am not a lawyer, but I can say I've actually learned a lot from John. And this position is actually a position. Give me a minute. This position is actually a position that I consider is actually rooted in principle because I've listened to like other opinions here, and it seems to be their opinions are or their stand currently is actually based on whoever is in power, and those kind of stands that are maybe subject to change based on whoever is in power. I can tell you, I'm not say maybe I'm picking someone's mind, but it's very predictable. Like the stand of Ayodele and Ade, I think their stands are very predictable. Why I can say it's predictable is because if they reverse it, you see them accusing the people, and that is not the stand where we want Nigeria to be. Like I say personally, the first time I spoke, I said I'm not supporting Malami. I don't think he's actually innocent. And in one way, you might want to think it's karma, coming up to him because that is the same injustice or the instrument of selective justice that he operated on through marriage. So for the principle stand, if we are actually looking for a better country, we have to base our reasoning based on principle. Once your reasoning is based on principle, and that means not subject to change. It might be someone you are supporting that is in power. Your principle remains your principle. Even if it's your brother, the principle still remains. And because of that principle, that is why I am against collective justice. And I can say 100% just to make it more easier. I agreed with John with what John said 100%. And I believe his position is not just a position that is rooted in principle, but I think it's also educational because I have actually learned a lot from it. It's more like lecture he was given, and his lecture actually aligned with the principle stand I have actually taken regarding it. Thank you, myself.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson, for being part of the conversation. This is one of the things that we do on the platform, right? We're here to educate ourselves. We're here to learn, not only yourself. I've learned a lot from Mr. John, from yourself, and every other personality, why or last time and everything. This is the joy of being on spaces. Sometimes people do not understand what spaces mean. They think some individuals like us, we are wasting our time. But we are learning, right? And I must continue to thank you guys who always sacrifice your time, your hard-earned money, to just be part of it because every time there is no space. So before I pass the mic to you, there with me, there's a lot of things that people are saying on the comment section, and it's very important that we carry them along. Mr. David always said okay, we might be able to discuss it, but not tonight. Maybe, I'm not sure when, but it's quite a very interesting. Much, David, for bringing news to my attention. I'm not sure when, but hopefully we might be able to discuss it. So, and Mr. Edo Pikin says, official EFCC will report such a EFCC. So we petition the EFCC over fraud case EFCC/L/07/2006 led to an arrest, and in April 2016, the suspect admitted to the crime at the EFCC head, that's Port Harcourt office. Case file letter went missing, quotation mark. Last update, January 2017, we relieve in 2023, EFCC have taken no action. So, okay, all right, well, but, I'm happy that John maybe started the EFCC. This is the thing, a lot of people do not have trust in the system, but we will not need to speak. And I just really leave that for now. So this is how we have allowed others to contribute. Okay, you have the mic, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. And I wanted to counter something that Ayodele said. And that's the problem with this idea of, justice being just holding a case file as a leash, you use that case file as a leash. El Nathan said something about, kissing the ring. Yes, Ayoshi. And yes, to file an appeal. And today, it's what that means is that that case is now from when if the judgment is given, I don't know, 3 months, I don't know, but I'm sure it's over that period. And that's simply because what I felt is the ring. And that's the point. So the whole procedural time. I felt this case has been liquidated resources to get a conviction. Say it doesn't go in. Get at first court of instance, which is the Federal High Court, you did not deem it fit to appeal it at the Court of Appeal, not even talking of going to all the way to the Supreme Court. And that's the problem with this type of system where who depending on whose side you are on, it depends that depends how you it's not going to build up the society, but it's just going to give us a false illusion of the prosecutors. Meanwhile, what they're doing is they're holding on to that case.
Thank you very much, for taking the time as well. Ali, you have the mic. Sorry, Mr. Taylor, mic. Ali, you have the mic.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. I just want to respond to Mr. Johnson. He said my views, my comments are predictable. There's nothing wrong in my views being predictable. But before going further, my views are rooted in logic, in my research, and in common sense based on Nigerian situation. Then he said probably because of the person, someone like Mr. Ford, that is profiling. And to me, it doesn't make sense. This is my point. I perfectly understand Mr. Jones' explanation. I cannot say enough. His explanations to issues are very always comprehensive. But in most of the time, this explanation he has given to me is in an ideal situation. But Nigeria is not in an ideal situation. In the absence of no other solution in this case now, how do we get EFCC to be very independent? has been the same story over years, again and again. Judicial reform, just like my judicial. But I believe to have that all those reforms, we need to have a new constitution. There's there's need for constitutional conference, regardless of who is in power. My view is my view, regardless of what my name is. Because what you have just said is to give a wrong impression of myself. I'm just a free thinker. So for me, I still insist this Malami has been accused. These are allegations. He shouldn't be afraid to go to court. Follow through the case. Most of the time, these cases take too much time based on what we have seen. Sorry, myself. I can see your hand up. So that is my point. I take objection to him saying people like me who they will support is predictable. I take objection to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ayo. Adero, please, you have the mic. Let's be very mindful of time. We have barely 7 minutes, so we can carry others along.
All right, thank you very much. Myself, remember the first time I joined the case, my first submission was that we need to make our judiciary system truly independent. Now, I will just drop that there, right? One of the things that you know, it's one of the things that is funny is that if we let Melanie go, right? That because he's in opposition party, should we let the former CBN governor go too? Should we let the other people that have been convicted go because of the name of the system is corrupt? No. For me, I think that if the person guilty, he should be convicted. He should go in for it. He should pay the ultimate price. Now, what we should be campaigning for is that other people who are in APC, the likes of the former Delta State governor, who is currently in APC, we have the former governor of Kogi, who the case is still lingering around right now. Those are the cases we should be fighting for. They should be charged to court. They should answer for their crimes. If they looted the Nigeria resources, they should answer for it. Not that we should let one go because, it's the opposition party, or it's the main person, or I just think those are just mere arguments. Because if he is guilty, he should go in for it. And this is not political stand, and this is just the reality of things. APC has criminals within them. We should call them out. We should find a way to charge them to court. We should agitate for that too. Like, there's no wrong doing that. Melanie should go in for it if he actually stole. And that still remains my point and my opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Idaraho, for your wonderful submission. So we've got 4 minutes. So within that 4 minutes, I will pass the mic to Ariwa for your final thoughts. You have the mic, so I will pass the mic to others as well.
All right, thank you very much, Moised, once again. And El Nathan, John has actually done justice to most of the things that I wish to say. And the most important thing is that we tend to overlook this as a win. No, it's not. When we see they can carry that out because Malami is incompetent or this. The truth is simple, is that we're encouraging stagnation. We are encouraging an endless cycle of mediocrity. We need to move forward. We need to actually push towards the government becoming better. We should not be settling for less. I think that ideology has actually kept us down for a very long time. So we need to push for the best possible outcome in Nigerian system, in Nigerian institution. Everybody, parastatals, they all need to give us the maximum. So we cannot be accepting half-baked justice for settle for less that is important, or we should take it as a win. No, let's go for the whole thing. then if the EFCC as a body, if they want to fight for corruption, they should do it wholeheartedly. They should go after everybody that is corrupt and not to be selective. I yield.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. John, your final thoughts, sir.
Okay, I'm going to try to make it quick. So, saying that Nigeria is not an ideal situation and must accept the selective justice is like saying a patient has malaria, right? We don't have anti-malarial drugs. So we check the cabinet and we have Flagyl. But Flagyl is medicine, give the patient Flagyl, The absence of the right cure does not justify taking the wrong one. Just like Flagyl does not treat malaria, and administering it is not pragmatism, it is error. Selective justice does not treat corruption. It doesn't even slow it down. It merely rearranges those who suffer from it. Just like the wrong medication, it may produce visible activity, arrests, headlines, handcuffs, and all of that. But the disease continues to spread underneath. In fact, the disease, as we know in medicine, often becomes more resistant. So the argument that we have no option is not realism, it's resignation. And resignation is how dysfunctional systems reproduce itself. I refuse to accept that Nigeria is incapable of being a functional nation. I reject that premise entirely. Countries do not become functional by accepting the wrong solutions because the right ones are difficult. They become functional because citizens insist, and even when it's inconvenient, on solutions that actually address the problem. So saying Nigeria is not ideal, I get that but that is not destiny. To treat it as destiny is to give up, and I don't think it's the best thing we can do. It's simply the easiest thing for power to offer, and history shows that when societies accept that kind of bargain, corruption doesn't end. It just simply learns how to wear better clothes. Thank you, Mindset.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. John, Mr. Ederaho, Mr. Johnson, Big Sam, as always, doing a great job co-hosting. Captain is not here to help you, so hopefully he will join. He'll return back again. And Ariwa, thank you very much for always being here. Ope, thank you very, very much, as always. Ayodele, I must continue to thank you because for some reason, you don't like to speak, but in the last couple of days, you have decided to make the platform more interesting. So I must thank you, Ayodele, and to Allah and every other person that has contributed to the platform. You guys are awesome. I'm not sure there will be another spaces before we enter the new year, but I'm not sure. But there's a possibility we might have one tonight, but I'm not sure if that. But if we do not have any, I want to thank every one of you, the listeners, the speakers, those listening anonymously, those who, for some reason, feel that the platform is not accommodating them. It's not going to, I just want to thank everyone who has continued to be part of this platform, right? Hopefully next year, we'll continue where we stop. The most important thing is for us to educate ourselves, disagree, agree, call out the injustice in Nigeria and find a way, the little we can do, to see if we can have a better country.